We can see it.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you so many. I'm so happy to see so many people staying up this late on a Saturday night to join this presentation. I appreciate that. Greg, I should probably mention it's being recorded. It might not have said that in the program. So it's always great to see everybody, but if you feel you need to turn off your camera, I understand. My name is Paul Goldberg. I'm the founder of Xreading. I will be talking about that system. I realize most of you probably know what it is. Many of you have used it, but maybe not everybody. So my mission tonight is to show all the new features that we've added recently and ones that are coming, but also just to give a quick introduction for those of you who have not heard of Xreading or have heard of it, but don't really know what it is. Okay, so this is originally a 45-minute presentation. I've reduced it to 20. Therefore, I'll probably just speed through it. And then if you have questions at the end or in the breakout room. Okay. So first of all, why did I create Xreading? Was simply to deal with all the problems that I and other teachers were encountering when trying to implement an extensive reading program. Number one, big one, lack of books. You don't have books, very difficult to have an extensive reading program. Lack of class sets. Originally, extensive reading is about every student choosing their own book, but I think there's been a paradigm shift where we're now having small groups reading the same book, class readers, because you can do more engaging activities. Not every time, but to have it sometimes. But in order to do that, you need a lot of copies, which libraries don't typically have. Monitoring if students are actually reading, especially if you're teaching in an academic context. We'd love to think our students will read just because they know it's good for them, but the reality is they're busy, they have other things going on. Tracking what they're recording what they're reading, getting students to read regularly. I was fortunate, I taught at a very good university. If I told all my students read 20 books this semester, they would do it. However, many would wait until the last week of the semester to read all 20 books. I'm sure we've all experienced something like that because that's just what humans do. Integrating audio. Occasionally, I was teaching listening classes. I wanted to integrate extensive listening from graded readers, but when I started with extensive reading 15 years ago, a CD where the publishers put the audio was useful. In the year 2022, a CD is not very useful. And accessibility for students, obviously, I was thinking students couldn't get to the library on the weekend, late at night, vacations. I was not predicting a global pandemic, but obviously during the pandemic, library accessibility has become a big issue. The solution to all these problems, no surprises, in my opinion, is Xreading VL, which is a virtual library of graded readers students can access anywhere, anytime, with no limitations. The mission is simply making extensive reading easier for teachers, more accessible for students, and profitable for publishers. So we have to charge for Xreading so I can persuade the publishers to put their books on the system. So I wish I could make it for free, but that's not really an option. A quick overview. It's an online library of over 1,600 graded readers. I can say now, actually 1,700. We passed earlier this week. So I think it's 1,740. And our goal is to reach 2,000 by next April, the start of the school year in Japan. From almost every major publisher. We've added, I think, 2 new publishers coming up very soon. Gives unlimited simultaneous use. Every student can read every book at the same time. 1, that means any book could be a class reader, and 2, that means it's not 1,600 or 1,700 books, it's 1,700 books per student, which is far more than any library would typically have. Works on computers and mobile devices, of course. We have audio, background information, quizzes for every book. This is then linked to a learner management system, which is a LMS, which allows teachers to track all their students' reading progress, how many books they've read, how many words they've read, things like that, assess their understanding of the stories, and guide their selection. Okay, these are the levels. We have 14 different levels based on the ERF level system. And as you can see, we have many books at every level. So it's not just for lower level students or higher level students, it's the full range. Quick demonstration of the student side. Students log in the first time, they see the green add book button here. They press that button. It brings them to the library. They can browse or narrow by your typical criteria, genre, level, things like that. They can start reading immediately, or they can get more information about the book. If they read immediately, this is what it looks like on a computer. most important to notice is the progress bar up here at the top left. When a student presses next, the progress bar moves forward. Okay, and that's how we track how far the student has read. And that's how a student knows how far they've read through the book. Works on mobile devices, of course. Many students are reading on their phones. There's definitely debate whether print or digital are better. My opinion is it really depends on where the student is, what the requirements are. For example, do they need to listen, things like that. Another advantage of digital over print, though, is you can change the view settings, something you can never do with a book. You can make the font larger or smaller. You can make the spacing, even change the background color, which could be very useful depending where the students are reading. When a student stops reading, this shows the reading data. You can see we're just reading Anna and the Fighter. It's 2,044 words. It tracks how many words we've read. It doesn't know if the student has genuinely read, but that's how many words they've looked at, which is 16% of the book. More importantly, it tracks the student's reading time, 22 seconds, and therefore it can calculate the student's reading speed. That's important for two reasons. Number one, reading fluency is such an important part of extensive reading, but teachers rarely know their students' reading speed. This is a great way to track it. Second, it's a great way to catch students who might be cheating, because students should not be reading 445 words per minute. That's faster than a native speaker like myself can read. We have quizzes for every book. These quizzes are designed specifically for extensive reading. They ask major details, things the student should remember. We have audio. Student just has to press the play button. They can listen whenever they want. We also have the audio at 5 speeds, because the speed of the original audio from the publisher may not be suitable for the student's ability. They can make it 10% slower, 20% slower, 10% faster, 20% faster without any distortion. It sounds very natural even at the higher speeds. We also have a feature where if you want your students to practice listening and not reading, there's a lot of still, I wouldn't say debate, but there's a lot of questions about how the two go together. If you've seen, there's been presentations during this conference about that. But if teachers want students to listen without reading, they can set it up like this. They can basically have the text blurred. Please don't check your glasses. The text is in fact blurred. Teacher side of Xreading, teachers can log in, see all of their classes. You can choose a specific, and you get a quick overview of that class. You can choose a specific class, and you can instantly see every student, how many books they've read, how many words they've read, how many minutes they've read, their average reading speed, and their average quiz score. You can then select a specific student and see every book the student has read, when they've read it. Pink indicates either their quiz score is too low or their reading speed is too high. Okay, so again, a very easy way to track students and make sure they're doing the work they're supposed to do. Teachers can also restrict the library on these different criteria: level, genre, words in a story. Very simple. You go check or uncheck what you want your students to be able to see. You can select a specific title. For example, if you want to do a class reader, I've chosen the award-winning book Egghead. I'd like to choose for my students to read, so I go to select specific title. I choose Egghead only. I could choose 2 books, 3 books, whatever I want. Submit this assignment. When a student logs in, they press the add book button. They will see only Egghead. Xreading is integrated with MReader. People think we are competitors because Xreading and MReader, but in fact, we're very complementary. MReader is quizzes only, Xreading is books. Okay, the benefit of integrating MReader, it has quizzes for over 8,000 graded readers, despite what that slide says, which means you can integrate your physical library into Xreading. Students can choose a physical book and get credit for it in Xreading. Okay, so that is a quick overview of the main features. Apologies for all those of you who've been using it and know all those. I will now get into the new features, and these are things basically that have been added in the past year and a half. Most important during the pandemic has been live monitoring. Obviously, teaching remotely is not ideal, and it's challenging, and especially for extensive reading. When you want your students to read in class, maybe just 10 minutes, you tell your students on Zoom, please read, and you have no idea what they're doing. So we've added a feature called Live Monitor. So imagine I'm in class right now. I tell my students, please read, and then I press the Live Monitor tab here takes a moment, and it will tell me exactly what my students are doing at this very moment. Gray means they're absent, dark green, they're currently reading, light green, they're somewhere on the website looking for a book, and pink, those are the troublemakers. Those are the students who have logged in recently, but there has been no noticeable activity on the website for the past minute. So yeah, teachers really like this, students not so much, but that's okay. Announcements, we realized very quickly when the pandemic started that teachers would need a way to make announcements to their students, especially if they didn't have another LMS. So there's a feature called announcements here. You can choose which classes or even which specific students. You can type a message. You can post it. And then when a student logs in, they will see that message. And I'm sure if some of you are using Xreading, you've noticed I sometimes send messages to teachers as well. I think that I sent messages about this conference and other important events. I try only to send it for something important, not, my cat's birthday or something like that. Okay, goals. Teachers can always tell the students, this is your goal, read 20 books, read 20,000 words, read 50,000 words. But students forget these things, so we've added a feature where you can now select for a class or an assignment, or both, the goal. You can choose if it's books or words. You can choose the amount. You create the goal. And then students on their homepage will see those goals and see how close they're reaching them. Also, to help motivate students, which is what this is all about, kind of a little bit of gamification, we have created the Xreading Certificate of Achievement, which is totally editable, and you can use it with your students, whatever award you want to give, whether it's the top reader, the student who's read the most horror stories. Different schools have come up with some very unique categories, and students, they find it motivating. Bonus words, this is actually something I kind of borrowed from MReader. Bonus words are simply if you want to give your students an award for something, maybe something they deserve. Maybe a student has read something that's not in Xreading, not in MReader, and you want to just give them words for that in Xreading. Or students have done something special in class. There's a button here called bonus words. If you press that, you can decide which assignment you want to add them to. You can give it a label so you can remember later what it was that you're rewarding your students for. Indicate the number, indicate which students, it could just be one student. And if you add it, the bonus words will appear in the student's reading history. A little secret for any of you, hopefully you don't have a problem with students cheating. But if you do, I strongly suggest obviously not giving the word credit for the book they read. But that's not really a punishment because you're just taking away something they didn't earn. You might want to remove some words as well. And we have found out actually an accidental but useful feature is you can actually give negative bonus words. We probably shouldn't call them bonus words. They should be called penalty words. But yes, you can, if you need to penalize your students for doing something they shouldn't be doing, you can do that with this feature as well. We just learned that a couple of weeks ago. Journals, when I created Xreading originally, I thought journals, I wanted to get away from that. I thought students are bothered by journals. They should be taking quick, easy quizzes. But I've evolved my thinking and I realized sometimes journals are suitable, especially if extensive reading is being combined with a writing class. So we've added a feature, it's an assignment-based feature. You can turn it on here. You can indicate, for example, minimum number of words, maximum number of words, the type of journal, like a reaction or a summary. You can allow them to modify their journal after the assignment closes. You can even write some instructions for them. All of this is optional, and you can add the assignment, the journals to the assignment. A student, let's say, has just read the book, Breaking Free. Okay, a student has just read this book. It's in their reading history. They now go to the Add Journal button. They can see the instructions from the teacher. They can type in their journal. Tells them how many words. If it's below the minimum, it will be red. Once they reach the minimum or go over the maximum, we'll go back to red, black, and then red. They save it. This is now their journal entry. The teacher can then, this is the teacher site now. The teacher can press the edit icon. They can read the student's journal, add a grade, make their own comment, save it, and then the teacher and student can both see what the student has done. Again, teachers have been doing this for ages with a notebook. This just combines it with Xreading, one less thing to check. Pre-reading vocabulary. As I think many of you are aware, especially if you have lower level students, many graded readers come with a pre-reading vocabulary section. The kind of thing if students read, it will help them to understand the story better. But students tend to be impatient and will just skip over this. So teachers have the option here of making that a required or an optional quiz, or hiding entirely if you don't want students to be bothered with it. If it's optional, you'll have the start reading button here and the preview vocabulary button here. If you made it required, there will be no start reading until they've passed the quiz. The quiz is very simple. We've just taken whatever is in the pre-reading and made a quiz out of it. So if it's pictures, it's a picture quiz. If it's sentences, it's a sentence quiz like that. A student looks at it, okay, is that right? And once they've gone through the words and gotten all of them correct, they can move on to the book. Speed reading. As you may be aware, Paul Nation, one of the biggest proponents of extensive reading, is also a major proponent of a dedicated speed reading component. He believes, and it's actually been shown in research, that a student doing both extensive reading and a speed reading work will make much faster progress on their reading fluency. Speed reading simply means a student reading a short, simple passage, taking a quiz just to show that they've read it, reading as quickly as possible, and then tracking it on a graph. The problem, though, is this, it's like with extensive reading. There's just, it works well, but there's lots of potential problems. Mainly students forgetting to track their time, forgetting to press start, forgetting to write the time on the graph, losing their book, and then all their progress is lost for the whole semester. So by putting it online, it just makes things a lot easier. We've licensed these 3 new speed reading books from ABAX, who you may be familiar with the name ABAX. They just won 2 language literature awards, and not for these, but for graded readers. Very simple. It looks like an assignment. A student chooses the speed reading. We've kind of gave it this speedy motif with the racing flags. Student presses start. Again, tried to make it look like a race. They read through to the end. When they get to the end with the finish flags, automatically tracks their time. We then take them to the quiz. If they pass the quiz, it's automatically tracked on a graph. So this is just one of the new features in Xreading. There's nothing special that you need to do to integrate this. It's at the same cost. And the teacher can tap on any of the points and see what the students have done. We've added some new categories. I've been talking about these for years and years, but we finally added them to the library. So these are the typical criteria criteria you can browse by or restrict the library: publisher, level, genre. And we have finally added some new ones. You can search or restrict by main character's age, main character's gender, English type, section type, and audio type. Okay, so it just gives you a lot more, students a lot easier ability to find the books that they want, and teachers easier ability to restrict books that they want students to see. We've also added some new features. For one, we often add new books and then students have to kind of search for them, which didn't make a lot of sense. So we now have a new feature here called a filter called, you can sort the library by when the book was added to Xreading, so students can easily find the newest books. We've added the heart here, so students can save a book for later on. And a problem I never expected before, but some students actually read hundreds and hundreds of books, making it then difficult for them to find a book that they're allowed to read. So we've added a new filter here called Only Books I Can Read. So if a student has read hundreds of books, they don't have to start searching through the books that they can't read. They can easily get to the books that they can read. Some enhanced view settings, and I think Jackie talked about this earlier. Well, first of all, accessibility for students who have reading issues has become come to the forefront, and we're trying to help these students. So we now, I don't think I have a slide for this, but we have 20 different text colors and 20 background colors. And also very importantly, students can now increase the space between characters, which from my limited research is actually the #1 way to help students at least with dyslexia, is the ability to increase or decrease, and of course, increase and decreasing the line spacing. The other thing we've done is we've added a glossary, interactive glossary. The student can decide how they want those words to appear, because, hey, why not? I'm going to choose bold. And let me just go back. You can see this is the text right here. I turn on the bold, and students can now see which words are in the glossary. Not all books have glossaries, but books that do, this is what will happen. And a student can tap on a word and get the word straight from the glossary. Some new books. We've added the ABEX books, which again, we now have to change the image because 2 of these just won Language Literature Awards just 2 hours ago. Some high-level books from Grassroots Press, which is a Canadian publisher. And finally, comic readers. There's a teacher who persuaded me to add these, and it was a ton of work to get them onto Xreading, because Xreading is really about text, but they are really very good stories. And we are in negotiation with another publisher of manga-style books to add their books as well. I said coming soon, 100 new Sunshine books. This slide needs to be changed. These are the books that were added earlier this week, which brought us over 1,700. Very nice children books, but good for low-level readers. A good mix of fiction and nonfiction. Also, we've added about 30 French graded readers. And if you want to access those, please let me know. We can't make them available for everybody because students keep choosing them by accident and getting very confused. We have student created materials, which I'll explain in a moment. A project which I'm really excited about, one of the most exciting projects we've done this semester, and there will be a presentation about it tomorrow, is Xreading News. I'm a news junkie, and I thought it would be a great idea to give students a weekly newspaper, and every week we have a new issue. Tomorrow, I'm sorry, I don't remember what time, but I think in the late afternoon, there'll be a presentation by the editor and 2 of the authors, and I will join that as well to talk about this exciting project. Another new edition, and this was presented on earlier today, is My Mysterious Friend Sora, which is a graded reader series, 10 books that the author has managed to somehow write an exciting, engaging adventure story with all of the academic words from the academic word list mentioned multiple times, 2,900 occurrences. I highly recommend it. It is high level, of course, because the academic words, but a very nice addition. And the oral communication textbook, this was also presented. We're creating a textbook that will be bundled with Xreading. Students can buy the textbook that has activities related to actual graded readers, but gives also choices for students. And this was presented on earlier. I think it was recorded if you're interested. We've organized some special events in the past year. One that was presented on Friday night is Talk to an Author, where we had the book Egghead, again, an award-winning book with a fantastically friendly and kind author who agreed to speak with students last November. It was a magical, beautiful event talking about bullying. The students were just so into it. They created materials, they sang songs, they danced. It was absolutely unbelievable. We then did another one, a far more serious, well, both were serious, but a darker topic, sex trafficking. This is the award-winning book. Trina and Anne spoke to other students. And the next one will be Andy Boone in October. And that one we're hoping to expand to a much greater audience internationally. And we've had a student graded reader competition. And we had, I'm sorry about that. I screwed up that slide. I don't know what I just did wrong there. Anyway, the books from the graded reader competition were put on Xreading. And sorry, kind of messed that up. The books were put on Xreading, 12 books, and then we decided the winner. Can you guess? And for the winning student, not only did they win a cash prize, but they also got their book printed. So Xreading has gone from taking a digital book to a printed book, and that student got 25 copies. And again, this is another project we hope to expand. Some other features we'll be doing soon is advanced class cloning, where currently you can clone a class with the assignments. Now you can clone a class with the students. So if you have a spring semester class and you want to make a fall semester with the same students, instead of just having it 1 year, you can do that very easily. You can batch add or edit students' reading levels, customizable password policy, greater quiz security, a leaderboard for your school, for your students to compete with each other, interactive activities, a forum, and an interactive dictionary. I think I've gone a little bit over time. I'm sorry about that. So any questions, or I can go to the breakout room if that's more suitable.